Jim Joyce, I missed you,
Hey,
man.
hey, hey. Back together. It's been a while. It's been a
I
while.
I know, and we've been missing our kind of quick syncs, which initially were for the meticulously unproduction production, but we never actually
Right.
talked about anything on Monday. But now you're busy traveling CEO, which is awesome. And we had Chandana kick us off on season 10.
Yeah. I listened to it. It was good. It was good. How'd you feel? Like
I
did you miss the gym factor? It was kind of
do you want me to be honest with you?
no, totally,
Every
totally.
Everybody's replaceable, including me, man. No.
No,
So
absolutely. No, I love the idea. If she likes doing it, awesome.
we'll see. Well,
Awesome.
we won't go into other things there because we're holding it tight on the DTX
Right.
podcast. So
Right.
I'm cheating. I cheated on you with Matthew Holt.
Yep.
I guess I cheated on you with Chandana now, and I'm also going to be cheating on you throughout the DTX season. So hopefully you're okay
Right.
with it.
Right.
And
Awesome. Awesome. All good.
you're back to Dublin.
Yeah, I'm in Dublin. I did Vegas, the Sambia conference, and I did Boston,
Yeah,
where our offices are. So I'm delighted to be back in Dublin. Took my bike to work today,
nice,
and it's nice to be at home. It's nice to be at
nice.
home.
I know we just missed each other in Boston. We were on the way out as you were coming in. So next time.
Mm, next time.
But maybe a little plug. I don't know if you're coming to Barcelona end of May for Health Excel as well. So, we'll
Right.
see.
Looking forward to it. Big
Okay,
event. That's awesome.
excellent, excellent. Well, our guest is waiting. So Saul Marquez is a fellow podcaster. So
Awesome.
Saul and I met when I was still a Bear. I was lucky enough to be on his podcast back in the day, and I think combination. To be fair, with Dan Kendall that planted the initial podcast bug in me, and then Saul, you planted another one in there. So
I love
welcome
it.
to the shot, Saul,
Oh
Hey,
James,
my
Saul.
God.
Jim, Saul.
Such a pleasure, James. Great to
Yeah.
meet you.
Great to
Eugene,
meet
good
you.
to see you
I've heard
again.
it. You've got the look and the voice of a proper podcaster. So I'm already impressed.
Thank you. Thank you,
And
James. You too.
and you got your professional setup. For the meticulously unproduced stuff, I just use the AirPods, but
It's
right
all
over in
good.
Yeah.
my kitchen / podcast studio is the professional one.
You
But
know, Eugene, and what I tell people all the time that want to get into podcasting is that perfection is your worst enemy.
Right.
So you're a prime example of don't wait until it's perfect. Just make it happen.
just get it out there.
That's
Love it.
Just get it out there.
Eugene's model. Perfection. Never let be perfection. Never let
Listen,
perfection
it's
get in your way.
I don't remember where I heard it. I mean, I'm sure many of you, but it's like, in these cases, done is better than perfect, right? And you sort of iterate.
Amen.
Right.
Anyway,
Amen.
but for the millions of listeners and viewers, as I always kick this off, let's get to know Saul Marquez. You can give us, you can rewind back all the way, to being 1 month old, or start, 10 years ago. Up to you. We got time.
We heard you were born inside Medtronics. That you were kind of attached from Medtronics.
That's right. That's right. I was born in the corporate office. No, that's a joke. So yeah. Hey, listen, first of all, I want to say thank you, Eugene. Thank you, James. It's such a pleasure to be here. And for everybody listening, a pleasure for us to be spending time with you here. To kick things off, gosh, I mean, I grew up, in Chicago. I was the son of Mexican immigrants into the country. They risked their lives. They came to the U.S. to create a better life. And I like to think that, man, I am kind of like what the American dream's all about, right? We grew up poor. They swam across the Rio Grande to get here to create opportunities for me and my brother.
Wow.
He's 2 years younger than I am. And I got to tell you, what an incredible experience to be in this country, an example of the opportunity that is possible and why so many businesses and so much healthcare innovation happens here. And beyond that, right? Eugene, you're in Europe, right? And James, I don't know where you're at.
With Dublin.
Where are you?
Dublin.
You're in Dublin.
Yep.
So,
It's still Europe.
Worldwide audience. What? Yeah.
It's still Europe.
And a lot of businesses that are formed even outside the US come to the US to build the business, right? And so the opportunity here is huge. It's a $3.6 trillion US market. And why not come here to build your business? We need help, right? We're behind the ball. And we need a lot of help. So God bless everybody that's doing their part, whether a provider or an innovator. But yeah, so grew up there. I had an experience when I was 5 years old. I was climbing the monkey bars. If you guys remember back when playgrounds used to be unsafe and fun, they've gotten
where you can more kid-proof. Have lessons learned as a child.
Yeah, you could actually bust your head on the pavement.
Right.
Go to the playground now, it's got like rubber floor. Right. My son just bounces back up. But I actually wanted to be cool like my cousin who was 5 years older. They were going all the way to the top and jumping off. And I remember I want to do that. And I went all the way to the top and this gust of wind flew in. And I fell backwards and just banged up my head. And I woke up a day later. I had gotten a concussion. And thankfully, it wasn't anything that led to long-term brain damage, although my wife would disagree with that. I ended up okay and driving away from the hospital in awe of the nurses and the doctors that helped me just, be better. And I remember from that day on, I always wanted to be part of this system of healthcare. And fast forward to today, I mean, I've been in the med device industry for almost 16 years. Obviously, I'm at Medtronic, and I've been in the media business for the last 7, strictly healthcare. And so I have not looked back once. I have looked sideways a couple times, but certainly have enjoyed the journey in healthcare. And I love what I do. I love being able to impact people's lives.
So you're happy you tried to get to the top of the monkey bars.
I'm happy. I'd do it again.
I love that. Like when I was I found with my first son, and I would try to convince him, like he's quite conservative, he's mellow, he's, very reserved and thoughtful. He's nothing like me.
I was going to say, is he going to watch this episode and be like, Dad? Like,
yeah. No, he's a cool dude. He's a cool dude. I admire him, but I remember trying to convince him to climb a tree, like I would be like, climb the tree. And then and I'm like, oh, that just must be the generation. But then my next son came along and I'd look around and I'm like, where is he? And he'd be like hanging out of the top of the tree, and I'd be climbing up trying to get him. So I felt like, you're happy. Anyways, you were happy you went to the monkey bars and you built a career at Medtronics.
Yeah. It's been fun.
In media.
It's been fun.
And so how did you, I guess you've been, because you mentioned you were like 15, 16 years, I think, in kind of the med device business. So pre-Medtronic, what, just like out of curiosity, how did you kind of get there? And then let's talk about the transition to even the media side. I personally struggled with that quote unquote media personality.
Yeah. I think you're pretty good.
He's not a natural. Eugene shies from the stage.
He's good at it though. He's good at it.
I'm walking off.
Very visible. Yeah, Eugene, thanks for the question. Actually, I've always been fascinated with communication. And when I went to school, I went to Miami of Ohio for school, for my university. I started as a communications major, and I was bored out of my mind. It just was like, wow, we're paying for college for this. And so I remember being in this class. It was we were reviewing their Aristotelian appeals of persuasion, ethos, pathos, logos. And I thought, man, these Greeks got it down. So that summer I took a trip to Greece, and it was life-changing because I was at the Acropolis, man. I just remember this is the foundation for Western civilization. This is awesome. I was awestruck by being up there, had a glass of wine on top of there. I don't know if I was supposed to do that, but I did. And then came back and I found out there was this thing called classical humanities, history. And I'm like, if I'm going to learn about communication, I'm going to read it directly from Aristotle. I'm going to read it directly from Cicero. So I studied classical humanities and history. And I remember trying to get into my first med device company with a history degree. Nobody wanted me.
Okay.
So it's like, what are you doing? So the school that I went to, Cintas, the uniform people, I don't know if they're in Europe or not, but here they wash uniforms. They lay floor mats down and do. I was in their facility services division, so that was my first job out of college doing sales. I was selling floor mats and toilet paper.
Okay.
And when the guy that I interviewed with and I got my first job in med device, I was selling spinal implants. I said to him, if I could differentiate toilet paper,
right,
believe me, I could sell anything. I could sell spinal implants. He was cracking up.
And you should start. You should start, since you're in the media business. You should start like a spin-off of The Office, but selling toilet paper, right? versus regular paper. Yeah.
I think that's genius. I'm taking a note down right now.
I will take some royalties off of it, of course, for the idea, but.
And did you grow up speaking Spanish in your household? Was that like your primary language, and then English, or was it English Spanish?
It was Spanish, and then obviously schooling, being in Chicago, was English. So my primary language is English because of that. But then I had a couple of years managing Latin America for Nuvasive when I was in the spine business at Nuvasive. I really upped my level of professional Spanish when I was doing that. So yeah, got a chance to do both.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So to the extent, I'm always kind of fascinated with these conglomerate device companies, right? Like as Medtronic, and sort of playing around in the digital health space. This is the shout of digital health space. Maybe talk a little bit around kind of where been the trajectory of Medtronic as a company. Would love to kind of learn to the extent that want to share.
Yeah. So Eugene, is it about digital health and Medtronic or? Yeah. Specifically.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, cool.
Med devices is more generically, right? Because
no. I'm happy to comment on it. Yeah. Let's chat. Yeah. So the division that I'm at Medtronic is the patient monitoring division. It is a legacy Covidian business. You guys are probably familiar. Right?
Yeah. Sure.
I remember that.
Yeah. So being in the patient monitoring space where we work to extract signals from devices, minimally invasive devices, sensors, wearables, to really help clinicians deliver care. Digital is so real for us, right? So from the perspective of what we do, it's critical. We're focused on respiratory compromise, right? So when somebody, for instance, this is one example of many, and we could dive into others if you guys want, but when somebody gets a procedure done and they get sent to the med surg unit, and they're on an opioid to help them with their pain, the nurse to patient ratio is not as high as it would be in the ICU. How often do we get near misses or even, just bad, tragic events when somebody overdoses on an opioid? It happens too often. In fact, more people die of that reason, respiratory depression, than plane crashes, right? I mean, every single year. And so what we do is we layer in the digital capabilities of remote patient monitoring. For example, we connect the patient to capnography, right? Capnography helps through the reading of the waveforms, understand if somebody's about to have a respiratory depression. And if a nurse is down the hall, they could see it beep on their central nursing station or a handheld or a Vocera or whatever device that they use. It's critical to scale the limited number of clinicians taking care of these things. So we're very dialed into digital health as a patient monitoring organization. If we zoom out a little bit more, I mean, you take a look at Medtronic, right? We pretty much cover everything besides orthopedics. Well, spine is orthopedics, but hips and knees, right? We don't do hips and knees, though we do have consulting services in the space. But you take a look at it, we do have, as a company, a digital health group that takes a look at digital health and the influence of these technologies across the entire portfolio. And then there's also a lot of efforts on artificial intelligence, for example, from our glucose monitor to the cardiac devices to the pulse oximetry that we have, like the pulse ox that we have.
We lost Jim Joyce, but maybe he got bored. So no, I'm kidding.
Oh, that's too funny. So yeah, long story short, there's a lot of attention on it, and we're always looking for ways to improve the way that we use the technologies for the betterment of patients.
While we're waiting for him to join, because I'm sure he, fat fingered the end or exit button or something. I'm actually curious. We just had this discussion with somebody else, not on this podcast, just separately, right? Like as you know, I'm doing this DTX podcast, right? And I've been sort of exploring the space, and the definition, and I'm not going to go into the formal definition, but it's it's a software as a medical device. It's a software-based intervention, and actually medical devices, while it's embedded software, actually has software. And so we had this whole more philosophical discussion: is a medical device also part of the digital therapeutic? Is a digital therapeutic a medical device? At the end of the day, my comment is it doesn't matter as long as it's got the great outcomes for the end consumer / patient. It doesn't matter what we call it. But I'm just kind of curious if you've come across some of these discussions or not. And while you're doing that, I'm gonna text Mr. Jim Joyce.
See if we could get Jim back.
Yeah, he skipped last week, and then I think I'm gonna fire him soon.
Gotta get some accountability going here.
Yeah, exactly.
No, all good. Yeah, I do think that more than ever the lines are blurring, and this is why we are seeing an evolution in the industry overall and the entrance of consumer companies like Apple and Amazon and Samsung. They're all coming into the space, and that's because there's this whole concept of you go from a physical device to then a device of that is basically, it disappears into software. Think of the iPhone. Hey Jim, welcome back.
Speaking of the iPhone, sounds like your laptop died or something, right?
I don't know. I'm in the office. I'm next to the thing. So I just had the Wi-Fi gods. The Wi-Fi gods just crashed on me. They thought I was working too hard.
Welcome back. Glad you're back. But it's this whole and by the way, there's a great example of what I'm chatting with you in a book by oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name. He's the Singularity University guy, Diamandis.
Oh yeah, Peter Diamandis.
Peter. Yeah. And so it's this idea that everything in your cell phone today, if you were to add up the cost 50 years ago, it was several different devices, and it's roughly like $900,000 worth of devices that you have on your phone. I think the same thing is happening in healthcare, where all of these devices are becoming super dependent on the things that layer in, which is the software that powers it up. So yeah, I think to your point, Eugene, we're in this space where there's really a blurred line, and really it's hard to put things in a bucket.
Yep. No, we're just discussing DTX and medical devices. So
awesome. Because of a nice non-segue in the conversation, how is it managing the media? So I want to hear about your podcasts. So one is, I think you're the most productive podcaster out there. Like, what do you? How many podcasts have you done?
We've done over 1,100.
Wow.
Yeah. But here's the thing, and here's what I'll share with you. So what we've done after my 1,000th episode that I personally did, we evolved our model to invite other thought leaders and business brand managers to basically have a podcast that we launch under our podcast. So we created this platform that has developed a large following, and now we get a ton of people that listen to us. I was sitting down asking myself, what is the mission of Outcomes Rocket? And the mission is to improve outcomes and business success for health leaders. And if we're going to do that, it's going to go beyond just me behind the microphone. It's got to be me enabling others. And what we've done is we've created the sponsored host program where we invite qualified thought leaders and influencers to join us on the platform with their own show. And so as a result of that, the content generation that we're getting right now is growing exponentially, and it's becoming more specific. So I was covering the entire healthcare continuum, that really, and mainly US focused, but with this expansion that we're doing, I've gotten a lot of interest from Europe as well. And I've gotten some interest from Singapore and Asia. So I'm thinking through right now how to segment those markets, because it has to happen if we're going to achieve our mission of truly improving health outcomes and business success.
And when you think about this, so you're doing this in coordination with having a full-time job that's outside of that, right? Am I right on that? So you've got. And how are you finding that balance, or do you have a balance? Do you just work all the time, just have natural energy to kind of push it out there?
So so for me, it's the word balance is kind of a fallacy. I think of it as a rhythm, because rhythm moves, right? And balance, you're still. So when you're and here's the truth, right? The truth is, if it's important to you, you will find a way. And so how do you do that? You do it by developing processes, systems, and automation. And how do you make things scalable? So I'll share with you what the secret sauce of the Outcomes Rocket, and why one of the things that I've been able to do is I've developed a style of a show, and we help the people that do their podcasts on our channel do the same thing. The first 500 interviews that I ever did, I asked the same 6 questions to everyone. And the thing is, if you develop a powerful enough set of questions that are guided by your mission and what you want to cover, the people that show up to your podcast are unique, and you're able to tell their story, which is different every single time. And so we power up podcasts by helping them scale on our channel. And that's how I'm able to do it. And then from booking, like the people that I get on my show, to editing and production, we do everything at a top-notch professional level. I don't do any of that. What I do is I show up and talk to awesome people like you guys, which is what I love to do.
So so nuggets. I mean, I think Eugene, I'll let you go for it.
Yeah, I mean, either way, I'm just dying to hear. I mean, 1,000 interviews yourself. Like, is there not to call favorites, aka this guy? I don't know. What are some of the like things that stood out for you? Kind of either out of those 6 questions. Like, first of all, what were the 6 questions? If you can kind of run through it, and then just a few. I don't know, 2 sort of key themes or things that you're seeing as a trend.
Yeah. No, great question, Eugene. Look, I don't. There are no favorites. Truthfully, I enjoy just connecting with people. And in fact, look, the reason I started Outcomes Rocket was because I struggled with like the in-between meetings. Like, you guys have been to meetings and you get jazzed up, right? Eugene, we were together at Vive. It was awesome. Jim, you probably remember the last meeting you were at. We're going to meetings again. How awesome is that? It's
amazing.
Number one, right? Like, we're back to it, and it's so great. But you guys all know, right? And folks, you're listening to this, you know as well that you go to this meeting, you do networking, you make progress, and then it's kind of like, where does that go until the next meeting? And so I found myself going to meetings and then in between missing something. And I said, there's got to be a filler here. There's a gap. There's a huge gap. And so I did some soul searching, and I did some consulting with a couple other big podcasters in the industry. So I hired this guy. His name is John Lee Dumas. He's got this podcast called Entrepreneurs on Fire. He was raising money for a book that he had written, and I invested in his book, and the investment got me a trip to his house in Puerto Rico, where I hung out with him for 3 days. Okay. And I learned everything that I needed to learn about podcasting. John, if you're listening to this, God bless you, my friend. Reason why I've been successful is because of the things that I've learned from you. And so certainly with the work that I did with him, I've been able to scale. Now, this guy's insane. He's done over 3,000 episodes, right?
Wow.
So you learn from those that have done, right? We all, even in healthcare, we stand on the shoulders of giants. And so it's acknowledging that and not starting from the beginning, and that's part of what we're doing with our sponsored host program is we're taking all of the things that I've learned from John, all the things that I've learned from myself as a healthcare podcaster, and we're amplifying that in a very short period of time.
Right. And if you block this out trend wise, so it was 1,000 podcasts over 2 years or 3 years, or what was the period?
Yeah. So we officially kicked off the podcast in 2016. So,
okay.
So call it,
got it.
Yeah. It's been 6 years.
Wow.
So talk about like going back to 2016 and like, what were the topics, what were the trends, what were the innovators, and then run it to like what happened last quarter.
Oh my God. And by the way, so this is when I met you, Eugene. And that's right. At the beginning, if you remember, I had a small little booth. And by the way, Matt, I'm blanking. Yeah. Holt. Yeah. Matt Holt was huge. So, hey, Matt Holt, I want to give you a shout out too, brother, if you're listening to this, because I mean, he will listen. Believed in me.
We'll make sure he listens and he transcribes
Matt,
this thing.
Listen to this thing, damn it.
It's generally a policy that we don't flatter Matt on the show.
Oh, that is too funny.
But no, out of love.
But he gave, I gave him a couple spots on the podcast to promote Health 2.0 before he sold it to Hims. And he gave me a booth where I showed up with 400 t-shirts. I was handing them off. This lady walked up to me too and said, "Are you nuts? You're a podcast. Why are you doing this? Why are you spending money?" I'm like, "Because I believe this thing is going to work. We need this." And Eugene, that's where I met you. That's where I met that's where I met Dan Kendall, right? Dan and I hit it off at that meeting. Brothers, the two podcasting brothers there, right? And
well, we joke around on this. We joke around here that kind of the digital health crowd either leads to Matthew Holt, US somehow, or Martin Kelly and team at Health Excel across Europe and obviously US. It's like, but
I met Martin at that meeting too. Yeah, I mean, what a great crew, right? And so all of this innovation, all these things. So Jim, back. So you were saying, at the beginning, oh my God, it was hard. In fact, I struggled to get people to show up to the show. Nobody wanted to be on. I struggled with it so much, I almost didn't do it. And so eventually I said, I have to do this. This is just an obstacle that is challenging me. That do I really want to make this happen? So I hired this woman, and she had a business. It was podcast booking. I'll get guests on your show. So I was like, I need you to do the first 20 for me. And I was like, whatever the price is. I think she ended up charging me like $60 an interview or something like that. And she was struggling too. So I was like, see, it wasn't just me.
Wow, that's crazy.
Right.
So here's what happened. We got our first few big names, and then we put them on a landing page, and then started inviting people. They would see the names and they'd be like, oh, okay, we'll do this. Right. So then it started getting traction, and to now, fast track to now. We say no so much, and I feel bad, but the truth is we only have the best. And so Eugene, that's why we had you and Marina the other day, and excited to showcase that episode soon.
So are we. And I just looked it up, by the way. Sorry, Jim. I just looked it up because I was curious. I didn't know when you started or whatever. I was originally episode number 26 on November 8th, 2017. Ooh. I'm in the first batch.
You are, my friend. You are.
You're 40 there at the time, right? You were.
That's right. That's how I got into that crowd. 40 under 40, right?
I love it. I love it.
So, but conversationally, I think Eugene and I have we're just, we've been just monkeying around just experimentally. But I love what he said about rhythm, because Eugene and I were during the pandemic, we started this, and we said if we just got into a rhythm, we'd catch up 15, 20 minutes, bullshit on a Monday.
Yeah.
Sometimes we talked about what we were going to book the next Wednesday. Sometimes we didn't. And then we just went on and had a chat. But that felt like, podcasting has become so mainstream, and it moved out of this idea of highly produced, obviously you do a fantastic job producing, Kendall does a great job producing, but this idea of a conversation, right? Like this, that we could flow into it, into a conversation. But I'd say pharma, med tech, healthcare people back in 2016, they weren't very comfortable with that, I'd imagine.
No. They weren't. No. And it's become more mainstream. It has, and the vision that we have for podcasting is that within the next 10 years, podcasting will be like blogging. Everybody will have one on their website. And if you're listening to this right now and you don't, you better look into it.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
You want to be left behind.
So,
yeah. But if you look at the special, sorry, one last question. If you look at this 1,000, are you blown away? So when you do one, that's been my experience. I'm blown away by the impact it has. And we don't have it's not other than our millions of listeners, but we're blown away. Eugene and I talk every week, and it seems like the connectivity and the ideas and the flowing of just these kind of small conversations. Are you still blown away by that after 1,000 later, or?
It doesn't get boring, Martin. That feeling you get, right? And I could see it in your face when you're telling me about it. You hear that you made an impact, or that somebody hired their new CFO as a result of a podcast you did, or you helped connect them to an opportunity that they never thought possible, or, oh my God, I was on your show and we just literally signed $1 million deal as a result of somebody that heard us on your show. Those things don't get old, man. I love it. And that's part of why I do it. I love helping people. I love being able to, and that's why I love healthcare. But the reason I love podcasting is because you're able to help at scale, and if you do a great job, you're able to help at scale.
I just a quick comment on that. And this is what fascinates me, right? As we, as Dan and I now kicked off the DTX podcast season 2, we just aired our conversation where he interviewed me, and it was one of those realizations, right? Like every episode was in thousands of listens, right, of last season. And if you remember the Health 2.0, where that big room had 2,000 to 3,000 people, it's literally like stepping on that stage, right? And it's impactful, right? It's 3,000 pairs of ears and brains listening, taking it in, connecting. So it's anyway.
Eugene, I love that you made the parallel, and honestly, we think of podcasting as a virtual stage, and every time you're able to address the virtual stage, there's an opportunity to make a difference.
Yep.
So I love
amazing.
That. It's a great parallel.
Speaking of making differences, Jim, you want to go to your famous question, and how I'll leave it to you, man.
Awesome. So Saul, you're picture yourself, you're in Chicago, and you bump into, just a younger version of yourself walking in this young, kind of charismatic, former medical device entrepreneur comes up to you and says, I have this great idea of using podcasting as a digital health intervention and helping people with, really serious chronic diseases by giving them Spanish multilingual podcasts into there, and they get this great business idea. And you're looking at this younger version of yourself. What advice do you say to the young Saul?
Well, Jim, thank you. First of all, I was that guy, and I was in the lobby. I was in the lobby of the Swiss Hotel in Chicago for the Becker's healthcare conference, and that is when I first had my first conversation with Scott Becker. You guys know Scott?
I've never met him.
Heard of. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So by the way, Scott's a good friend now. And he was the guy that because of what he has built, right, with the healthcare space, I said, Scott, and Jim, it's so funny that you asked this, because you literally took me back to that moment when I asked Scott, should I do this? And when Scott looked at me, he's like, I think it's a brilliant idea. And he's like a forward thinker, right? Like he's always thinking about different ways to make things awesome, especially in this field that we're in, media and healthcare. He's like, you got to do it. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, you just have to do it. Don't even like whatever you got to do, just make it happen. And thankfully for him, you know, I got the encouragement. He was one of my first interviews too, and a lot of introductions to other health leaders that led to what is now Outcomes Rocket. When time came for him to start podcasting, he reached out to me. He's like, hey man, I want to do this. How do I do it? I'm like, happy to help you, Scott. So yeah, you know, if I was in that space, I would certainly encourage to go for it, you know, and whatever. I mean, and Jim and Eugene, you guys have done some amazing stuff too, you know, to be able to encourage people to not be afraid and to just go for it is the way to go.
Just do it and get a champion, right? So Scott was your champion
and get a
in
champion.
a way. So that's it.
Awesome.
And I love the rhythm. I think the rhythm is great. This kind of idea of a rhythm. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. And because if you don't, then you go stale, right? And like if a rock is balancing, it grows moss. But if a rock is rolling, baby, you're a rolling stone.
That's a perfect end to the episode. We're gonna need to clip that.
That's a perfect end.
And with that, great to see everybody here, everybody.
Gracias.
Yeah. Muchas gracias. And we, you know, for the listeners and viewers, hit subscribe, share it out, and we'll see you next week.